The rain hadn't let up all day. By 6:12 p.m., the street outside 1417 Maple Drive was glossy black, rippling with puddles under the orange flicker of a street lamp. Wind pushed the porch swing into a soft creak that no one inside noticed. 8. Clara Dean was curled on the beige carpet, chin in hands, eyes wide at the flickering television. A bowl of half-eaten cereal sat forgotten beside her, soggy and cold. Her favorite cartoon was playing, one where the talking cat always outsmarted the clueless dog. Upstairs, her mother, Marjorie Dean, paced in front of her bedroom mirror, wiping mascara smudges from under tired eyes. Her hair was already frizzing from the humidity, her grocery list clutched in one hand, car keys in the other. She paused by the stairs and called down with forced lightness, "Clara, baby, I'm just running to the store. Be back in 10, okay?" Clara didn't turn. She raised one hand lazily, still absorbed in the cartoon. "Can I have Pop-Tarts?" "If you're good," Marjorie muttered, mostly to herself. By 6:14. The front door clicked shut, the house fell into silence. Except for the television's canned laughter and the low hum of the refrigerator. Somewhere deep in the walls, the pipes let out a groan, the kind houses make when they've seen too much. Clara sat still for another few minutes. Then she rose and padded toward the hallway, bare feet quiet against the wood floor. Her teddy, bare brown, tattered, stitched clumsily at the neck, lay on the couch, left behind. She didn't pick it up. At 6:23. The TV crackled as the VHS tape reached its end and began to rewind with a mechanical wind dot at 6:26. Marjorie pulled into the driveway. Rain pelted the windshield harder now. She grabbed the bags, juggling a soggy paper receipt and a diet soda as she climbed the porch steps. "Clara," she called through the door. Breathless, no answer. She stepped inside. Warmth hit her. So did the sound of the VCR. The TV was playing blue screen now. A faint static buzz filled the living room. The couch cushions were still slightly indented. A bowl of cereal, still untouched, sat where Clara had been. Marjorie's voice cracked the silence. "Clara." She dropped the bags in the kitchen. The soda rolling to the side, she moved room to room, her voice rising. "Clara, honey. This isn't funny." The hallway was empty. So was the bathroom. Upstairs, Clara's room was neat. Her pajamas folded on the bed. A crayon drawing still taped crookedly to the door. A family of 4 with smiles too big. The basement door creaked when she opened it. She stared into the black for several seconds before flicking on the light. It flickered once, then held. Nothing moved. Back in the living room, Marjorie finally noticed the teddy bear. Lying face down, one glass eye missing. Stuffing beginning to leak at the seam. Something about it felt wrong. She reached down and picked it up. A memory flashed. Clara, crying over that bear at age 5 when the dog tore it. She'd refused to sleep without it, called it Buttons. Said it had a heartbeat. "Clara," Marjorie whispered, "where are you?" She stepped back and turned in a full circle, as if her daughter might be hiding behind the recliner. Her breath came faster. Her hands trembled. She opened the front door again. Rain poured. No small footprints on the porch. No trail in the muddy grass. Just darkness and the faint sound of a dog barking 3 houses down. Marjorie dialed 911 at 6:35 p.m. When the police arrived, the first officer wrote the word suspicious in his notebook. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints out of place. No open windows. No broken locks, just absence. The neighbors hadn't seen a thing. No cars, no strangers, no screams. "You said you were gone how long, Mrs. Dean?" 17 minutes. "I swear, and you left her alone?" "She was watching TV. It was just down the road." "What about your husband?" "Dennis is away. Fishing trip with his brother." They wrote that down to dot. By midnight, floodlights lit the backyard. Officers combed through the flower beds and under the porch. A dog team was brought in, but picked up no scent. A muddy footprint was found by the fence. But it matched Marjorie's own boots. A deputy walked back inside and looked at the teddy bear lying alone on the armchair. She didn't take it with her. "No," Marjorie replied quietly. "She Never went anywhere without it. He didn't write that part down. By 3 a.m., the house was empty again. Marjorie sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cold cup of tea someone had made for her. The light above buzzed faintly. In her mind, she kept replaying that last moment, Clara on the floor, waving without looking up. That image would haunt her for years. 2 days later, Benji, Clara's 12-year-old brother, returned from his school camping trip. The house was quiet. No balloons. No welcome back. Just his mother on the couch, clutching the teddy bear like it might answer her if she held it tightly enough. "Where's Clara?" he asked. Marjorie didn't reply. Outside, the mailbox still held Tuesday's mail, a grocery receipt for Pop-Tarts, a school picture order form. A letter from Dennis, postmarked from Washington State. The postman hadn't noticed anything strange, just the usual quiet house on Maple Drive. The kind of house where children shouldn't vanish. By the time the sun rose on October 17th, the Dean household had become the center of a small-town frenzy. Yellow tape flapped like warning flags in the breeze, and uniformed officers moved carefully in and out of the house like actors in a grim play. Cameras clicked, coffee cups steamed in gloved hands. Inside, the air was still thick, not just with humidity, but with disbelief. As if the walls themselves were holding their breath, Benji Dean sat at the dining table, swinging his legs nervously beneath him. A blanket draped over his shoulders, though he wasn't cold. His fingers worked anxiously at the frayed edges. The boy had been back home less than 24 hours. Already, everything was different. Detective Mara Klein, lead investigator, crouched beside him. She didn't smile, but her voice was soft. "Benji, I know this is hard, but you were close with Clara." "Right," Benji nodded. His lips were pressed into a flat line. "Can you tell me if she ever talked about being scared?" A pause, then a small, breathy voice. "She didn't like the basement." Klein leaned in slightly. "Why?" she said it. "Watched her, like something lived down there." Klein made a note, but didn't react. She'd heard stranger things. From kids, but the way Benji's fingers clenched when he said it, that unsettled her. In the living room, another officer was carefully photographing the couch. A pillow had been flipped over during the night search. Beneath it was a single, pink beret, small, plastic, shaped like a bunny. Clara's nearby. The teddy bear sat on the armchair, still slumped, still silent. Officer Dobson eyed it like it might speak. "Klein," he called out, "you need to see this." She entered, brushing back her damp hair. He pointed to the bear. "Mum says the kid never went anywhere without it. So why is it here?" She walked over and picked it up. It was heavier than it looked. The fur was worn, the seams loose in places. Something about it felt wrong. Not dangerous, but off. She turned it over. A patch on the back looked newer, sewn shut with mismatched thread. Someone had repaired it. "Recently. Take it," she said. "Bag it, too, and take it downtown." Dobson blinked. "You want to process the bear?" Something about this kid knew to take it everywhere. "The day she vanishes, it's sitting here like it didn't matter. I want it tested." He gave a small shrug, pulled out an evidence bag, and slid the toy inside. In the hallway, Marjorie Dean leaned against the wall, looking 10 years older than she had 48 hours earlier. Her eyes were swollen. Her hands trembled as she lit a cigarette and barely inhaled. Klein approached gently. "I need to ask again, Dennis. Where is he, exactly?" "He's in Washington, some river with his brother. I told you. Has he called you?" "No. He doesn't get cell service up there. He'll call when he's back." Klein jotted a note. That was the third time Marjorie had said the exact same sentence. Word for word. "When was the last time you saw him?" "The morning before." Clara disappeared. Klein paused. "And you didn't mention anything about Clara not feeling safe, or being afraid of anyone?" Marjorie exhaled a long stream of smoke and didn't answer right away. Finally, she had nightmares. All kids do. Nightmares about what? I don't know. A man with no eyes, I think. She didn't like to talk about them. Klein studied her. Did Dennis know? He'd tell her to grow up. Said she was too old for imaginary monsters. Back in the living room, Benji stared out the window. The rain had returned, thin and cold. The teddy bear was gone now. Bagged, tagged, taken away. She never dropped it, he said softly to himself. Not even when she threw up in the car, she just held it. He turned toward the stairs and looked down the hallway. The basement door was shut now. He knew he shouldn't, but he walked toward it anyway. The floor creaked beneath his steps. The air grew colder, denser, like walking through syrup. His hand hovered over the doorknob, then a voice, behind him, sharp, Benji. He jumped. Klein was there, arms crossed. That's not a place for kids. I just wanted to see. There's nothing down there. We already checked. But Benji wasn't so sure. And neither, if she were being honest, was Klein. At 5:17 p.m. As officers began packing up, one last search of the house was conducted. Closets, under beds, behind the old armoire, upstairs in the attic, they found dust, Christmas decorations, and a single handwritten note. Tell him it's not my fault. No signature. No handwriting match yet. It was placed into evidence without context. Just one more strange piece in a story that was already falling apart. The teddy bear was delivered to the lab that night. The forensic tech who opened the evidence bag didn't think much of it. Just another piece of fluff and fabric. Until he noticed the stitching, he pressed the seam. Something inside gave slightly a crunch, like plastic shifting, but it wasn't stuffing. He turned the bear over again. Well, what the hell are you hiding? He muttered. By April of 1999, Clara Dean had become a face on a missing persons flyer. One of those slowly curling posters you walk past at gas stations. Big eyes, soft smile, faded corners. The case had long since gone cold. The media left weeks ago. The police only called once a month, now, if that. Whatever urgency once pulsed around the Dean household had dissolved into dust and silence. Marjorie no longer slept in her bedroom. She had moved to the couch under the television that never turned off anymore. Always some late-night talk show murmuring softly through the static. Her eyes, when open, stared at the screen but never watched. And she had started collecting people, psychics, mediums, palm readers. A woman who claimed she could hear children's last thoughts. Another who said Clara had been taken by an energy being and would return by Easter. They all came, they all took money. None stayed. Benji hated them all. At 13, he looked older, too tall, too pale. He barely spoke at school anymore. Teachers said he was distracted, a euphemism that meant he stared out windows and flinched at sudden noises. He had developed a strange habit of watching his mother sleep. Sometimes he stood just outside the kitchen, unmoving, listening to her whisper Clara's name, like a prayer or a curse. One night in June, the whispering stopped. Benji had found her crying in the bathtub, still fully dressed, fingernails bleeding from clawing at the porcelain. The dream, she kept repeating, she was under the floor. I heard her. He helped her out, dried her hair, put her to bed. But something had shifted. That night, Benji had his own dream. It was Clara's voice, faint, almost behind a wall. Benji, come get me. He sat up, gasping. His hands were dirty, his fingernails packed with wood dust. He had no memory of getting out of bed. The next morning, he noticed his fingernails were splintered, and when he walked across the upstairs hallway, outside Clara's old room, he paused. The floor felt soft, hollow in one spot. Over the next few nights, the sleepwalking continued. Marjorie began locking her bedroom door, not out of fear. She just didn't want to hear him mumbling again. The words chilled her. She's under here. Clara's not dead, he lied. On the 7th night, Benji awoke in the hallway on his knees, clawing at the floorboards. Not scratching randomly. No, there was purpose. His hands were focused on a specific knothole in the wood, nearly invisible in the dim light. Like he had known exactly where it was, he stopped, breath shaking. The silence around him was total. No Marjorie, just the hum of the old ceiling fan downstairs and his pulse throbbing in his ears. Benji looked down. One of the planks had a hairline, crack running through it. It hadn't been there before, or maybe it had, and no one had noticed. Either way, something urged him forward. He crawled to the end of the hall, brought back a flathead screwdriver, and returned to the spot. He dug in. The wood groaned. Flakes of dust rose, catching the moonlight from the window, and then the plank gave a sharp snap. Beneath it, wedged deep in a narrow gap, was something pink. Benji reached in, hand trembling, and pulled out a strip of fabric. It was a child's ribbon, faded and dusty but unmistakably Clara's. He had tied it for her the morning she disappeared. Right before school. Downstairs, Marjorie heard the sound of wood breaking and let out a sharp scream. She came running, half asleep, wild-eyed, and found Benji crouched over the open floorboard, holding the ribbon like it was a piece of God. "Where did you get that?" she gasped. "Benj." I didn't answer right away. He just held it out to her. Her knees buckled. She collapsed to the floor and grabbed it, pressing it to her lips. Tears streaked her cheeks as she rocked back and forth. "It's hers," she sobbed. "It's hers. She was here." Later that morning, a detective from the original case, not Klein, someone new and far less invested, arrived with a forensic tech. They pried up 6 floorboards, searched the crawlspace below, shined flashlights into every dusty corner. Nothing, no blood, no prints, no body, no bones, just the ribbon. "Kids drop things," the detective said flatly. "Might have fallen through. Years ago, it didn't," Benji insisted. "I found it." The detective didn't argue. He just nodded, wrote a quick note, and packed up. To them. It wasn't a lead. To Marjorie and Benji, it was a sign. That night, Benji refused to sleep. He sat in Clara's empty room, the ribbon coiled in his hand, staring at the walls. Something about the room felt heavier now, not physically, emotionally, like memories had pooled in the corners, thick and invisible. On the far wall was a crayon drawing, one that had been overlooked for months. Clara had made it when she was 6. Benji stared at it. 4 stick figures, a sun, a big tree. One of the figures, the smallest, had no face. Beneath it, scrawled in a child's shaky handwriting, were the words, "He lives under." Benji stood frozen. She was trying to tell us. At 2:43 a.m., the house creaked. Benji turned in the hallway. A shadow shifted. Not walked, not passed, just shifted, like someone standing still, but no one was there. Down in the evidence room at the local station, the teddy bear still sat in its sealed bag. No one had tested it yet. No one had noticed the sound it made when moved, the faint plastic tap inside. The unnatural stiffness, it waited by the winter of 2002. The Dean family no longer existed. On paper, they had simply dissolved, a finalized divorce. A house sold below market. Custody of a son left vaguely defined. In reality, they'd fractured, like a porcelain plate dropped from a rooftop. No one had the energy to sweep up the shards. Marjorie, Dean, now lived in a cramped apartment above a laundromat on the edge of town. The walls smelled of mildew and detergent. She kept the curtains drawn, and she drank, mostly gin, sometimes wine, if it was cheap enough. She told people she was coping, but even the word had lost its shape. No one asked about Clara anymore. Benji was 17 now, tall, gaunt, the kind of teenager teachers didn't bother calling on. He wore his hoodie up, even in summer. His eyes rarely made contact with anyone. He still lived in the same town, though not with either parent. His father, Dennis, had moved to Boise and remarried. Never called, never visited. Benji, never visited Benji. Never visited Benji. Never asked why. He didn't care. Or maybe he did too much. The flashbacks had started in the spring at first. They came as snippets, a sudden rush of color or smell, a whisper with no mouth. But soon, they became more vivid. Benji would wake up in the middle of the night, sweating, with a clear image in his mind. Clara, in her pink dress, blood blooming across the front like a spreading rose. He'd see her mouth moving, trying to say something, her lips quivering, but no sound. Then, finally, just one word, Uncle Greg. Benji would bolt upright, heart racing, hands trembling. Who the hell was Uncle Greg? He went through every box, every photo album his mother had left behind. No Greg. No uncle by that name. He even called his father once. The only time in 3 years did Clara ever know a Greg. A long pause on the line. Then, a confused grunt. No, I don't think so. Why? She said his name, in a dream. Uncle Greg. Well, maybe you're mixing things up. You were both just kids, Ben. I remember what I saw. Click. Benji began researching his family's history. Old yearbooks, obituaries, archived town records, anything with the last name Dean. Nothing. Until he found a box in his grandmother's attic. Dusty, unlabeled, filled with scraps. He pulled out a newspaper clipping, dated 1985. Gregory Allen, local teen, arrested on suspicion of assaulting foster sister. The photo was grainy, but the name made his stomach twist. Gregory Allen was placed in the Dean household in 1982. Benji stared at the words for a long time. This man had lived with his father, his aunts, maybe even his grandparents, and yet, no one had ever said his name. He brought the clipping to Marjorie one Sunday afternoon. She was slumped on the couch, drink in hand, a game show murmuring in the background. Do you remember this guy? He asked, holding it up. Her face shifted almost imperceptibly as her eyes scanned the page. Then she looked away. You're digging in places that should stay buried, she said quietly. Why? Who was he? Just a foster kid. Troubled. Came and went. Clara said his name. In a dream, she called him Uncle Greg. Marjorie blinked once, slow, then took a long drink and laughed bitterly. Dreams are lies. You should know. That by now. Benji didn't answer. He just stared at her. She wouldn't meet his gaze. That night, the dream returned Clara in the hallway, her eyes huge, pleading, dress soaked in blood. But this time, she spoke. He told me not to tell. Mummy. He said it was a game. Benji jolted awake, breathing hard. The taste of iron in his mouth. His hand was clenched into a fist. Inside it, a single red thread. He didn't know where it came from. The next day, he visited the house on Maple Drive. It had been sold, but it still sat mostly empty. The new owners hadn't moved in yet. He stood outside, staring at the upstairs window. Clara's window. He couldn't remember anything from that day. Not clearly, but the dreams. The ribbon, the word Greg, they circled him like wolves. What if the truth had been buried in more than floorboards? What if it had been buried in him, in therapy? Benji finally asked the question out loud. Is it possible to forget something you saw? Like really saw? Something awful? The therapist, an older woman with gentle eyes, nodded slowly. Yes, especially if the brain decides. It's too painful to carry. It can lock it away, even if you watched it happen. Especially then. Benji looked down at his hands. They were shaking again. That night, he opened Clara's old sketchbook. One page stood out. A stick figure with no eyes, and underneath a name scribbled again and again. Greg. He turned the page slowly and stared. A crude crayon drawing of their house with arrows pointing downward. Toward the basement, beneath it, she had written, He made me go down. I didn't want to, but he said Mummy wouldn't believe me. Benji's chest tightened. Something inside him, something long asleep, was waking up, and it was angry. Benji. Dean turned 20 in silence. No cake, no candles, just the sterile hum of a therapist's office, where the paint peeled at the corners, and the air always smelled faintly of Lysol and unspoken memories. He'd been coming twice a week now, mostly, because he'd started waking up with scratches on his arms again. Like something inside him was trying to claw its way out, and the dreams, they weren't dreams anymore, they were memories. Or something worse, flashes, sounds, a breath at his neck. The word Greg, always Greg, but Uncle Greg didn't exist. At least that's what his family had always told him. His therapist, Dr. Elise Morrow, was calm and careful. She'd worked with survivors of trauma, war veterans, and children who'd seen too much before they knew how to speak. Benji trusted her more than he trusted anyone, which still wasn't saying much. You're certain the name was never mentioned In your household? She asked one morning. Benji nodded. Double quotes never, not once, not until Clara said it. In my head, and your mother. She shut down. The second I brought it up, like her soul just folded in on itself. Have you ever considered, Dr. Morrow said gently, that someone tried to erase him? Benji stared at her. You mean like, delete him? I mean suppress, deny, like he never existed, because admitting he did would cost too much. The newspaper clipping had been his only proof. Gregory Allen arrested in 1985 for lewd and lascivious conduct toward his foster sister, age 7. Charges dropped. Family sealed the record. Benji had it memorized now. He'd read the article so many times the words had become tattoos behind his eyes. His mother had been 14 when it happened, and no one ever mentioned him again. He went back to the town archives. Again, the clerk barely looked up anymore when Benji came in. He just pointed toward the microfiche room. Benji scanned. Yearbooks from 1982 to 1986. No photos of Greg, no mention of him in sports, clubs, graduation, but on one page a candid photo from a drama club play. There was a boy standing behind a curtain, half in shadow. Someone had scribbled names in blue ink beneath it. 2 were legible. Marjorie. Dean.Greg, no last name, but it was him. The face was older than the mugshot, but the eyes were the same black dots, vacant and unblinking, like someone who knew where to hide. That night, Benji dreamt of the curtain. He pulled it back. Clara stood behind it, dress bloodied, mouth open but silent. Next to her, the boy with the ink-black eyes. He whispered into her ear, and she nodded. The next morning, Benji dug through the last of the boxes from their old house. Junk, mostly broken toys, VHS tapes with no labels, a shoe with no pair. But beneath it all, wrapped in an old pillowcase, was something strange. A journal. Not his, not Clara's, his mother's. It began in 1992, 4 years before Clara's birth. Most entries were mundane. Grocery lists, frustrations with Dennis, memories of teen years. But then, July 7, 1994, Greg called from the facility again. I let it ring. I won't answer. I can't. August 22, 1994, Dennis said we should visit him, that he's still family, he doesn't understand, he never will. January 3, 1995, I had the dream again. Greg standing over a crib. Clara wasn't even born yet, and still, I felt the fear in my bones. Benji closed the book. His hands shook. His breath came ragged. They knew, he whispered. They all knew. He confronted Marjorie the next day. She was sober for once, sitting in a rocking chair that didn't rock, staring at nothing. He tossed the journal in her lap. Tell me everything. She didn't look up, didn't touch the book. You shouldn't have read that. Too late. A long pause. Then, I was 16 when they brought him into the house. Foster program. He was 13. Quiet, polite. Everyone liked him. Voice cracked on the next words. He molested me. Benji felt the ground vanish beneath him. Jesus, I never told, not really, just once to a school nurse. She reported it, but my parents covered it up, said I was lying, said I was confused, but the article was buried. They scrubbed it from everything but the local rag. I only kept the clipping out of spite. Benji's voice was ice. Why didn't you warn us? Why didn't you tell Clara? Marjorie finally looked at him. Because your father invited Pan to stay with us. For 2 nights, in 1998, I didn't know until the day he showed up. Benji stumbled back, hands to his head. Are you saying he was there when Clara disappeared? She nodded slowly, shame drowning her. Dennis said Greg had changed, that he'd gotten therapy. He slept in the basement. I locked door that first night. The second night, I forgot. Silence, and the next day, she was gone. Benji's mouth moved, but no sound came. That night, he sat alone in his apartment. He opened Clara's drawing again. The one with the stick figure labeled Greg. Next to it was a sketch of the teddy bear. Only now did he notice what had been drawn inside the bear's chest. A square, like a pocket, like a compartment. His eyes widened. She put something in it. Across town, in a dim police evidence room, the teddy bear still sat in its plastic bag, unopened, untested, forgotten, but not forever. The house on Maple Drive was barely standing. The roof sagged at the corners, paint peeled in strips like skin. Shedding in the summer heat, weeds choked the porch. Windows stared out like hollow blinded eyes. Benji stood at the edge of the overgrown yard, hands in his pockets, a backpack slung over one shoulder. His breath fogged in the April air, though it wasn't cold. Just ... heavy. Marjorie was dead. Liver failure, no funeral. Just a call from a nurse at County Hospice and a few papers to sign. No last words, no apologies, only a half-empty box of her belongings and the deed to a house filled with ghosts. The key still worked. The door groaned open, the hinges protesting like they'd been disturbed from a long sleep. Dust hung in the air like suspended ash. The couch was still there, threadbare and sagging. The same one Clara had sat on the night she vanished. Benji didn't sit. He walked to the back hallway, where the closet had once been stuffed with tapes, board games, and broken Christmas ornaments. He opened it. The smell hit him instantly. Mold, paper rot. The past. He pulled out a box labeled Home Movies in smudged Sharpie. Half the labels had peeled. One tape lay on top, its sticker still intact. October 15th, 1998, the date before. Clara disappeared. Benji's pulse stuttered. He dug through the closet until he found the old VCR, dusty and yellowed with age. Plugged it into the battered TV in the living room. The screen glitched to life, blue and buzzing. He slid in the tape, static, then a flicker, then Clara. She sat cross-legged on the carpet, her stuffed bear propped beside her, the TV flickering cartoons in the corner. She was laughing, talking. To herself, mouthing lines from the show. Benji stared. He knew this scene, not from video, but from memory. The night before, it all changed. She looked so alive. Then something made him pause. The camera angle, it wasn't from the front. Not handheld, it was ... high, slightly tilted, stationary. What the hell? He squinted. The footage was being shot from the kitchen, behind the open pantry door, half concealed. A hidden camera. Clara turned slightly, looking off camera. Benji, come play with me. Benji's blood turned to ice. He hadn't been home. That night, he'd been away on a school trip. He knew that. But on the tape, Clara giggled and waited for a reply that never came. She looked confused. Then shrugged and returned to her cartoons. The camera kept rolling. 20 minutes of mundane play. Singing, talking to her teddy. Then something changed. Faint shuffle. Off-screen, Clara turned toward the sound. Uncle Greg. Benji leaned forward. His heart was pounding. Clara took a hesitant step toward the hallway. Her shoulders tensed. You're not supposed to be here. Then came the voice. Low, male, just out of frame. Clara, don't scream. The screen cut. Too black. Benji hit rewind. Then pause, then play again. Same moment, same words. He felt nauseous. Who had filmed this? Why was it hidden? And who had placed it back in the closet? He pulled the tape out, hand shaking, and checked the VCR again. There was a second tape still inside the machine, no label. Benji popped it out, slid it in, pressed play. This time, it opened on static for several seconds. Then the basement steps, dim, grainy, lit by a single swinging bulb. A man walked into frame, partially, jeans, boots, a belt hanging loose at the hip. He knelt beside something we couldn't see, then looked toward the camera, his face, mostly in shadow. But the jawline was familiar. Too familiar. Benji stared. The voice came again, louder this time. It's okay, Clara. I'm not gonna hurt you. Just be quiet. All right. Clara's voice was muffled. Please don't lock me down here. The camera jolted. Someone had adjusted it. Set it behind a box or shelf. There was movement, then a scream. Short, cut off. The screen cut to static again. Benji stood up so fast he knocked the coffee table over. This wasn't footage someone had forgotten. This was a confession, a crime, a monster caught mid-performance, confident he would never be caught, and somehow it had sat untouched in a suburban closet for 4 years. Then another 16. After that, Benji took the tape and rushed outside. He sat on the porch, chest heaving, eyes on the horizon like it might offer answers. He pulled out his phone, called a number he hadn't dialed in years. It rang. Then, a gruff voice answered, "Hello, Dad, it's me, Benji. I found something." "What are you talking about?" "Tapes. From the night Clara disappeared. Benji, you brought him into the house. You let him stay. In the basement. You lied to Mum. You lied to me." Silence. Then, "Where are you?" "Maple Drive. Don't do anything stupid." Benji hung up. He wasn't the one who'd done something stupid. That night, Benji didn't sleep. He watched the tape again, and again. He watched the moment Clara flinched. Watched the way the man's shadow reached toward her. Watched the slow fade to black, like the house itself was trying to forget. He stared at the teddy bear in the corner of the video, unmoving, watching everything. The same bear that now sat in an evidence locker, sealed, untouched, possibly still hiding something. In the morning, he drove to the precinct. The officer at the front desk looked half asleep. "I need to see Detective Klein. It's about the Dean case." The officer blinked. "That case is over 20 years old. So is the murder. But it happened." He held up the tape, and this proves it. The evidence room was cold and fluorescent lit. A clerk led him to the bin-marked Dean Clara, 1998. The bear was still there. Benji lifted it carefully, felt the weight, still too heavy, still wrong. "I want it scanned," he told them. "X-ray it. Cut it open if you have to, but something's inside." They hesitated. "You got a warrant." Benji opened his bag, pulled out the second VHS tape. "You're about to..." Benji wasn't sure what pulled him back to the house. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the teddy bear now being scanned, prodded, and dissected by forensics. Or maybe it was that gnawing feeling that what he'd found still wasn't the whole truth. There was more. There had to be. The footage was damning, but it didn't explain everything. Why was Clara so calm at first? Why did she know his name? Why did she not scream until the end? And why had she ever gone into the basement at all? The house had a hum to it now. Not a sound, just a vibration beneath the skin. Like memory itself had soaked into the walls, and every breath Benji took pulled. In ghosts, he moved slowly, methodically. First stop, the living room, where the camera had once been hidden. He checked the vent under the counter. Empty. Then the basement. Dust. Mold. The faint trace of rot still clinging to the insulation. Nothing. Finally. He crawled into the cramped crawl space, behind the HVAC unit, near the back of the house. It was dark, suffocating, filled with cobwebs and dead insects. Then his flashlight caught a glint of blue. Wedged behind the ductwork was a small plastic box. Clear, sealed with a rubber band. Benji's breath caught in his throat. He pulled it free, wiped away the grime, and opened the lid. Inside, wrapped in an old sock, was a pink diary, small and worn. A Lisa Frank unicorn sticker still clung to the front. Clara's handwriting. He sat on the floor and flipped to the first page. Neat, blocky letters. "Hi diary. My name is Clara Dean. I am 8 years old. I like my bear and cartoons and my big brother, Benji." Smiled faintly, then kept reading. The entries started light, innocent, but gradually, they shifted. September 29th, Mummy yelled at Daddy again. She said he lied. I hate when she cries. October 3rd, Daddy says, I can't tell Mummy about the basement game. It's our secret. Benji's stomach clenched. October 6th, Uncle Greg smells like wet leaves. He touches my hair too much. I don't like him. October 9th, I saw a shadow in the wall. It was big and had no face. October 10th, Benji's not home. Daddy said I have to be extra brave. Uncle Greg is staying one more night. He watched me sleep. Benji shut the diary. pressed his forehead against his knees. His throat felt tight. The worst was still coming. He knew it. He opened it again. Oct 12. I drew the room. It's the one he made me sit in. It has no windows, no doors. Just cold. On the next page, a drawing, crayon, a square room, black lines, a single light bulb, stick figure curled in the corner. Benji ran his fingers over the page like he could touch her. October 14. Daddy says, I'm being silly. That Uncle Greg's just trying to be nice, but he scares me. He whispered something. Said if I talk, Mummy will get hurt. AHT 15 Bear is the only one who listens. I'm going to hide this diary in the crawlspace, where the air smells funny. Maybe someone will find it. Maybe Benji. His eyes burned. I found it. Clara, he whispered. I found you. He took a photo of the last page, tucked the diary in his bag, and climbed out. The air in the hallway felt colder now, thicker, as he walked toward the front door. Something on the wall caught his eye. A faint scrawl in marker, almost invisible dot at child's eye level. Benji squinted, leaned in. Daddy said, pretend it was a dream. He left the house. This time, maybe for good. That night, he returned to the precinct. Detective Klein was waiting. She'd been assigned the reopened case. She was older and uglier, harder, but her eyes still carried that glint of razor focus. Benji placed the diary on her desk. Clara wrote this. The week she vanished, Klein opened it slowly. Her jaw tightened. Her fingers trembled slightly as she flipped through the entries. She didn't speak for a long time. Finally, why didn't your mother hand this over? She didn't know. Clara hid it in the crawlspace, and Greg died in a facility in 2004, brain hemorrhage. Klein exhaled. That complicates things. Benji reached into his backpack and produced a USB drive. There's more. The tape. He nodded. He wasn't working alone. Klein raised an eyebrow. You think your father? Benji cut her off. I know he brought Greg in. I know Clara wrote that he made her lie. I know she screamed his name the night she disappeared. And I know she drew a room with no doors. Klein nodded slowly. Something cold and steel-like moved. Across her face, we'll reopen everything. Every shred of this case, starting now. Benji stood, fists clenched. Start with the basement. Across town, Dennis Dean stood in his kitchen, watching the news flicker across the TV. He looked older, weathered, a beer in one hand, a phone in the other. The screen flashed with the headline, Breakthrough in 1998. Dean case, evidence uncovered. He blinked. Then the phone rang. Unknown number. He let it ring. In the evidence room. The teddy bear had finally been opened. Inside, tucked deep within the stuffing, was a folded photograph, creased and faded. It showed Clara, crying, and beside her, a man, only half his face visible. But what was visible was enough. Benji hadn't slept in 3 days. His mind was a rusted carousel spinning, but never slowing. Flashbacks, half-formed images, voices from tapes and diaries and dreams. Clara's diary, the hidden camera, the muffled scream, and the bear. Inside the stuffing, a folded photograph, Clara's tear-streaked face. And behind her, a man's torso. Just enough to hide his identity, but not enough to hide the belt buckle. Benji had seen it before, hanging on a kitchen chair. His father's, the same night Clara vanished. He sat in Dr. Morrow's office, silent for too long. The clock ticked. Rain tapped against the windows. You're not talking, she finally said. Benji stared at the floor. I don't trust what I remember. That's okay, she said gently. Memories can lie. Trauma can bend time. But what if I let her go? What if I helped him? What if his voice broke? He squeezed his eyes shut, fists trembling in his lap. What if it was me? Dr. Morrow leaned forward, calm, measured. No alarm. She'd seen worse, but never something this layered. Tell me what you do remember. Benji exhaled shakily. We were watching cartoons. She was sitting with Bear. I went to get cereal. Then it's blank. Gone. Nothing. Not even noise. How do you know you went for cereal? Because when the police came, the bowl was on the table. Milk curdled. Spoon on the floor. And you don't remember putting it there. No, Benji. What if you did see something, but someone made you forget? He looked up, eyes glassy, like hypnotized. No, she said. More subtle. More terrifying. Through guilt, threat, gaslighting. If the person who hurt Clara was someone you trusted, someone with authority, your mind may have locked it away to survive, so it's still in there. Maybe, but it won't come back all at once. Nails dug into his palms. What if I don't want to know? Then you'll always live in fear of a ghost that might not be yours. Silence stretched between them. Then Benji whispered. He said I was sleepwalking. That I had nightmares. He told the cops I was confused. That I make things up? Who said that? My dad, Dr. Morrow, didn't flinch. Did you make things up? No. Then maybe your father needed you to believe you did. The dam broke. Benji stood, pacing, eyes wild. He said Clara was sensitive. That she got scared easy, but she wasn't. She knew. She drew the room. The one with no door. She saw what he was. I think she tried to tell me. Did she? There was a night, she was crying, said something about a secret. I told her not to tattle, because he said not to trust girls who lie. His breath caught. He looked sick. Jesus. I shut her down. She came to me, and I told her to be quiet. Dr. Morrow stood and gently took his shoulder. You were a child. I was 12, old enough to know. Old enough to be lied to, manipulated, blamed, silenced. I should have seen it. You did. You just weren't allowed to remember. Benji collapsed into the chair. His whole body trembled. There's something under the surface, he whispered. I feel it. Like a film playing behind glass. Let it roll, Dr. Morrow said softly. Don't fight the real. He closed his eyes, and the image came. The hallway dim flickering light. A smell, something sweet, like cologne mixed with sweat. Clara standing by the stairwell, barefoot. Their father whispering to her, come on, sweetie, let's play the blanket game. Benji watching from the stairs, half asleep, cereal bowl in hand, Clara hesitating. I want mummy. Mummy's at the store. Daddy's here now. Benji saw her take one step, then another, then disappear into the dark. He turned and walked to the kitchen, and forgot. He opened his eyes, drenched in sweat. Dr. Morrow handed him a tissue. What did you see? He led her down. You were there, he nodded. He called it a game, the blanket game. And I just walked away, because that's what you were trained to do. Benji clenched his jaw. He erased it. Not just from me, from Mum, from the cops, from the tapes, everything. Until now, Benji stood, shaking, but taller. Somehow, I want to testify. You're not on trial. He is, that night. Benji visited Clara's grave. It was the first time since the funeral. A small marker, pink letters, Clara Dean, 1990. Forever our sunshine, he knelt beside it. You didn't lie. I did. I lied to myself, and I let him win. He placed the ribbon, her old pink hair, tied beside the stone. But not anymore. The wind picked up. Leaves danced across the grass. He felt something shift inside him, not closure, but clarity, and clarity was a kind of vengeance. Back at the precinct, Detective Klein reviewed the forensic report. The teddy bear's stuffing had hidden more than a photo. Inside the lining, stitched into the seam, was a scrap of fabric ripped from a flannel shirt. The DNA was still viable, and it matched. Dennis Dean. The bear stared up at him from the table. Its stitched eyes were crooked, the fur patchy, stained in places with time. But it still smelled faintly of Clara's childhood lavender shampoo, and something artificial. Like bubblegum lip balm. Benji hadn't slept. Again, he didn't plan to. He'd gotten the bear back. From evidence after the DNA results, Klein let him keep it overnight. One night, before it went into the chain of custody, it should have just been a formality, a symbol, but something didn't sit right. The weight was still off. Even after they'd removed the photo and the cloth swatch, there was still something, inside, something more. It was 2:43, a .m, when he grabbed a pair of scissors from the kitchen drawer. He held the bear like a fragile thing, murmured, "Sorry," to no one in particular, and began to cut. The seam tore open slowly, like the bear was resisting. Inside, old stuffing, yellowed, musty dot. Then something hard. He reached in, fingers brushing a corner. A small, square object, smooth like plastic. Benji pulled it out and stared. A flash. Drive. Black. Modern. Not from 1998, someone had hidden it later. Much later, he plugged it into his laptop. A single folder popped up, no label. Inside for voice notes, MP3 files, and a video. MP4. His hands hovered above the keyboard. He felt sick, cold. Like opening this would open more than files, it would open everything. He clicked the first audio, recording number 1, whispers, Clara's voice, tiny, breathy. Like she was speaking into the bear itself. "If you're hearing this, it means you found me, I think. Or maybe just the bear." A pause. "Daddy says the basement is a secret. That it's our special place, but it's not special. It's cold and smells like paint." Another pause. Her voice trembled. "I don't think I'm supposed to be here." Benji's throat tightened. He clicked the next file. Recording number 2. Countdown. Today's Thursday. He said, "Friday is the day." I don't know what that means, but he told me to pack bear and wait by the stairs. A faint sob. I heard him and Uncle Greg talking. They said, "Mummy is too nosy. That I'm just like her. I wish I wasn't. I want Benji to find this. He always believed me. He just forgot." Benji covered his mouth. His hands trembled. He just forgot. Recording number 3. Proof. This is proof. Daddy says I'll disappear forever. But maybe Bear will remember. The sound of footsteps. A door creaks. If someone finds this, tell Mummy I'm not lying. I'm not making it up. It's real. All of it. Benji paused before the last recording. It was simply labeled. Recording number 4. Goodbye. He wasn't sure he could take it. He clicked it anyway. I heard them again. They said one last time, then they laughed. I think I'm going away. A pause. Then I'm scared. But if Benji finds this, tell him he was the best, even if he forgot. A soft kiss noise. Silence. Then the click of a recorder. Stopping, Benji sat frozen. His sister had been recording her own disappearance, preparing for it, knowing no one would listen, unless she made them. She hadn't just been a victim, she'd been her own witness. He opened the final file. The video, the screen lit up with grainy footage, dark, barely visible. Then a figure appeared, Clara, 8 years old, holding the bear, whispering, I'm going to hide this inside. I don't know if it'll stay there. But if it does, it means someone helped. She looked straight into the camera. Please believe me. She reached forward, and the camera shut off. Benji leaned back in his chair, eyes glassy, heart pounding. The files had timestamps. October 15th, 1998. The very night she vanished. But the flash drive, the tech was from years later, which meant someone had copied it. Someone had taken her original tape, converted it, and hidden it inside the bear long after the investigation had ended. There was only one person who had access to the evidence, Locadot, who worked there from 2007 to 2013, who knew how to hide in plain sight. Benji opened the police roster, scrolled through the archives, and found the name Officer Rick, Halberd, retired in 2013. No disciplinary record, clean, forgettable too. Forgettable, Benji grabbed the bear again. Something told him this wasn't over, not yet, not until everyone who helped cover it up paid for what they did. It was raining when Benji went back to the house. The same kind of rain from that October night in 1998, cold, quiet, and unending. The kind of rain that didn't just fall. It pressed against the world, like grief with no name. He didn't bring a flashlight this time, just a crowbar. The teddy bear sat in the passenger seat, limp, empty. The recordings had been turned over to Klein. The flash drive duplicated. Chain of custody secured. Official procedure. But Benji couldn't shake the feeling that Clara had left one last breadcrumb. One final truth. The basement welcomed him like a grave. Dim. Damp, still smelling faintly of rot and mildew. The light bulb flickered overhead, casting slow, swaying shadows against the concrete. He stood at the bottom of the stairs and looked around. Every time he'd come down here before, something had stopped him from looking closely. Guilt, fear, memory. But now, he was done looking away. He ran his fingers along the back wall, cinder block and plaster, cool to the touch. And then, just left of the water heater, he noticed something off, a faint seam in the wall. The kind that didn't belong. He tapped it, hollow. He grabbed the crowbar, wedged it between two panels and heaved. The wall cracked with a grown drywall splitting like bone. A burst of dust choked the air. He kept pulling until a portion of the wall fell inward, revealing darkness behind it, and then the smell hit. Not rot, not mold. DK.BENJI. Stepped back, gagged, and pulled his shirt over his nose. Inside the cavity, curled in the fetal position, wrapped in a faded pink blanket, was a small human form on Mr. Kublian bones. Cladahi fell to his knees. Not in shock. He'd known this day was coming, but in grief. Grief so sharp it felt like his ribs had caved inward. He didn't cry. Not then. Not yet. Instead, he took out his phone. Called Detective Klein. The scene swarmed with sirens within the hour. Forensics moved methodically. The pink blanket was bagged. The remains photographed and carefully removed. A single lock of hair, miraculously preserved in the folds of the fabric, matched the sample from Clara's old hairbrush exactly. Clara Dean was no longer missing. She'd been here. The entire time, 15 feet from where her family had eaten dinner, slept, grieved. Dennis Dean was arrested that same night. He didn't resist, didn't speak, didn't even blink when they cuffed him. Benji watched from across the street as his father was led into the cruiser, face pale under the street lamp's yellow glare. For a moment, their eyes met. Benji didn't look away. The interrogation room was small and white. Dennis sat like he was waiting for a bus. Calm, detached. Detective Klein stood with her arms folded. "We found her." Dennis looked up slowly. "Did you?" Wrapped in a pink blanket, the one she used to carry around the house. He didn't respond. "You've been coming back to the house for years, haven't you? Picking locks, hiding things, moving things. You kept her there. Still nothing you wanted." Her close wanted to keep control, even in death. Dennis leaned back. "You're assuming a lot. We have DNA. The bear, the wall, the shirt fragment, the tape. She named you." A flicker, the smallest twitch in his eye. "Children lie." Klein leaned in. "So do fathers." Outside, Benji waited in the precinct lobby. A cup of untouched coffee in his hands. Klein emerged an hour later, face tight, eyes tired. He didn't confess, but it's airtight. Forensics, recordings, the diary, the body. He's going away. Benji looked up. He won't talk. He doesn't have to. Clara already did. Benji walked home under heavy clouds, no umbrella, no jacket, just the rain. It felt clean, honest, like it had washed away 20 years of rot when he got home. He placed the teddy bear on his shelf. It was just cloth now. No longer a vault. No longer a cage, just a memory. He turned off the light and went to bed. Somewhere, in the quiet space between dreams, Clara's voice echoed. Not crying, not scared, just soft. "Thank you." It began before the court date was even set. Satellite. Trucks. Popped tents. Camera crews. The house on Maple Drive. Long empty, long forgotten, now flooded every screen in America. Father, accused in 1998. Disappearance of daughter. Teddy bear led police to girl's remains after 16 years. Family. Secrets. Hidden walls. And the monster next door. Benji watched it unfold from the quiet of a hotel room 3 counties over. He didn't want to stay in the house. Not anymore. He couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. He kept thinking about the courtroom. About Clara's voice, trapped in that flash drive. About what it would take to say it all out loud in front of strangers. The courtroom was packed the day it began. Not with people who loved Dennis Dean, with people who once trusted him, neighbors, co-workers, the old church pastor, a woman who taught Sunday school and used to bake Clara cupcakes with blue icing. No one made eye contact. It wasn't guilt over his actions, it was guilt over their own silence. Dennis sat motionless. He wore a grey suit, his hair was thinner now, his face leaner, but he still had that same expression, the one Benji remembered from childhood. Neutral, borderline bored, like he was watching someone else's movie. The prosecution opened with evidence, the recordings, the diary, the DNA from the bear, the shirt scrap, the hidden crawl space. The defense barely tried. There was nothing left to argue. Only one person could tell the truth. Now, on the fourth day, they called Benji to the stand. He stood slowly. Each step forward felt like wading through cement. He sat, hand trembling as he was sworn in. He could feel his father's eyes on him, but he didn't look up. State your name for the record. Benjamin Dean. Your relation to the victim. She was my little sister. His voice cracked on the word was. The prosecutor approached slowly. Benji, do you remember the night Clara disappeared? Not all of it. I thought I did. But I didn't. What changed? Benji pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. The courtroom hushed. Clara did. He unfolded her diary, the one they'd read behind ductwork and drywall and trauma. Can I read something? The judge nodded. Benji. Single quotes as voice shook as he began. Today's Thursday. He said Friday is the day. I don't know what that means. I heard them again. They said one last time. Then they laughed. I think I'm going away. He paused, looked up. She was 8. She knew what was happening. She tried to warn us, but no one believed her. A tear slipped down his cheek. Not even me. He looked toward his father, finally. Met his eyes, but I believe her now. The courtroom was silent. Even the judge looked down. During recess, Klein pulled Benji aside. There's something else. What now? She handed him a leather-bound journal, faded Marjorie's handwriting, found it in hospice storage. It's hers. Benji stared at it for a long time. Did he want to know? He opened it anyway. April 2002, I can't sleep. I hear Clara in the walls. May 2003, Benji sleepwalked again. He said Greg's in the corner. There's no Greg, but I know what he means. August 2005, I watched Dennis come home with new paint. He said he was fixing the water damage. But there's no leak. October 2005, I found a pink ribbon in the laundry. I threw it away. I can't protect her, but maybe I can protect him. December 2007, I asked him point blank. I said, tell me what you did to her. He just stared. Said, what do you think? That was all. That was everything. Benji's hands shook. She knew. Klein nodded. She was scared. She chose silence. For you, Benji felt hollow. She thought I wouldn't survive. The truth. Back in the courtroom, the verdict was fast. Guilty on all counts. Life without parole. No appeals, no mercy. Reporters swarmed the steps of the courthouse. Benji didn't speak. He walked past them, hoodie up, hands clenched. He felt neither relief nor justice. Emptiness. The community tried to rally. There were candlelight vigils, scholarship funds in Clara's name, a mural on the side of the old elementary school, her smile painted, 12 feet tall. But every pair of eyes in town held something heavy now, a knowing, a shame. They had looked away. And monsters love averted eyes. Benji returned to the grave. This time, with a hammer. He pulled the small granite plaque out of the soil, took it to a stonemason the next town over. 2 weeks later, he returned to place the new one. White marble, etched with gold, Clara Dean, Uno, Nueva 1998, she told the truth. We just didn't listen. The Dean house came down in 6 hours. One moment it stood weathered, broken, full of shadows, and then it was dust, cinder blocks crushed, paneling shredded, walls pulverized by a machine's steel claw. Neighbors stood in silence behind yellow tape. No one clapped, no one cheered. It wasn't triumph, it was release. Benji watched from across the street. He didn't bring a camera, didn't record the collapse. Some things didn't deserve to be replayed. The final wall came down with a groan. A cough of dust clouded the air. The basement where Clara had been buried, where secrets had been plastered and painted over for years, was now just a shallow crater. The wind moved across the lot like breath from a wound. He stepped forward. When the crew cleared out, the soil was raw gouged. Beneath his arm was the teddy bear, repaired now stitched lovingly by the widow of the town's retired tailor, still missing an eye, still lopsided, still Clara's. He stood at the center of where the living room had been, where she was last seen watching cartoons, where Bear had been found alone on the carpet. He whispered, "We're not here anymore." And he meant all of them. Her, him, the scared children. They used to be. It had been 9 months since the trial. Dennis was in a maximum security prison in Oregon. He'd been assaulted twice, refused protective custody, declined all visitors, even Benji. Not that Benji had any plans of going. Marjorie's journal was now in an evidence vault. Though Benji had kept scanned copies, he didn't hate her, not anymore. He understood what fear could do, how silence could feel like safety. He now ran a local support group called the Echo Room, a place for siblings of the missing. They met every Tuesday in a church basement, nothing like the one he grew up with. This one had windows, light, crayon drawings on the walls, cheap donuts and soft chairs. They never forced anyone to speak. But when they did, they were heard, really heard. There was Ava, whose twin disappeared on a camping trip. Jordan, who lost his sister on a school bus no one remembered boarding Miller, whose father swore she'd imagined her brother ever existed. They sat in circles, shared, or just listened, and every week, Benji opened the meeting with the same words. We are not crazy. We are not broken. We are not guilty. We are not alone. Because he knew now what it took to believe that evening. After the demolition, he sat in his apartment. The flash drive lay on the table. The same one he'd carried across cities, courts, and nightmares. He hadn't played the last file since the trial. Not because it hurt, because it mattered, and he wanted to be ready. He inserted it into his laptop. For files, as always, he clicked the one labeled, Goodbye. The sound crackled through the small speakers. I heard them again. They said one last time. Then they laughed. If Benji finds this, tell him he was the best, even if he forgot. There was the kiss, the silence dot, and then, just before the clicker voice, soft, barely above a whisper. Something he hadn't noticed the first time. I love you, Benny. The world stopped. Benji covered his mouth. A laugh sob broke from his chest. Messy, ugly, human. It wasn't fear. It wasn't pain. It was love, raw, unfiltered, real. He closed the laptop, sat back, and let himself cry. Not because she was gone, but because she was never truly silenced. Later that night, he placed Bear on his bookshelf, next to Clara's diary and a framed copy of her drawing, The Room with No Door. But now, he'd added a window to it, in pencil, just one. Letting the light in, he looked around his apartment. It wasn't much, just 2 rooms, a couch that sagged, coffee mugs that didn't match. But it was safe, warm, quiet, not like that house, not like that basement. This one echoed too, but with laughter, healing, and sometimes even joy. He went to bed and stared at the ceiling. He didn't see shadows. He didn't hear screams. Only her voice, tucked somewhere behind memory. I love you, Benny, he smiled. Clara was gone, but her story wasn't. She had spoken, he had listened, and the world finally had heard.